Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood before the massive viewing screen in Terran Command Station Harmony. The stars looked peaceful, but she knew that peace would not last much longer. Her coffee had grown cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. The communication officer turned toward her with a worried expression. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian Empire fleet. They're demanding immediate response." Kim nodded slowly. She had been expecting this day for years. The Zephyrian Galactic Empire ruled over 847 star systems. They had conquered every species they had ever encountered. Their massive fleets moved through space like death itself, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not need. The main screen flickered and showed the image of Fleet Commander Zarketh. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights of his command bridge. 4 arms moved in gestures that showed his authority. Behind him, thousands of uniformed officers worked at their stations. The sight was meant to inspire fear. "Primitive humans," Zarketh spoke in the common galactic language. His voice was deep and commanding. "I am Fleet Commander Zarketh of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender immediately. Your pathetic species will serve the Empire as workers and slaves. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours." Kim looked at the tactical display. 50,000 Zephyrian warships surrounded the human border systems. Each ship was larger than Earth's biggest space stations. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything humans had ever built. By every logical calculation, humanity should surrender immediately. The bridge crew looked at their admiral. Some of them were young officers who had never seen real combat. Others were veterans who had fought pirates and raiders. All of them knew they were facing something beyond anything they had ever imagined. The Empire's reputation was known throughout the galaxy. No species had ever successfully resisted them. "Admiral," the communications officer whispered, "they're waiting for our response." Kim took a deep breath. She thought about Earth, where billions of humans lived their daily lives. She thought about the colonies where families raised children under alien suns. She thought about all the dreams and hopes that humanity carried among the stars. Then, she thought about something else. She thought about the secret reports that had been arriving for decades. Reports about species that the Empire had conquered. Reports about children separated from their parents. Reports about entire civilizations forced to work in mines and factories. Reports about cultures destroyed and languages forgotten. The Empire called it civilization. Kim called it slavery. She walked closer to the communication panel. Her uniform was simple compared to the elaborate clothes worn by Zephyrian commanders. Her ship was small compared to their massive flagships. Her fleet was tiny compared to their grand armada. But Kim had something the Empire did not understand. "Open a channel to the entire Zephyrian fleet," she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." Kim looked directly into the camera. She spoke clearly and calmly. Her voice carried no fear, no anger, no desperation. It carried the quiet strength that humans had learned through thousands of years of history. "This is Admiral Kim Soo-jin of Terran Command. I have received your message, Fleet Commander Zarketh. I want you to know that we appreciate you taking the time to visit our corner of space. However, I must inform you that you need to halt your advance immediately." The Zephyrian commander's eyes widened with surprise. His 4 arms stopped moving. Behind him, officers turned to stare at their screens in disbelief. In 800 years of conquest, no one had ever told the Empire to halt. "Furthermore," Kim continued, "I suggest that you prepare your ships for extended negotiations. This situation is more complicated than you realize. We have much to discuss." And the communication ended. Kim turned to her bridge crew. They looked at her with expressions that mixed admiration with terror. They knew their admiral had just declared war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. They also knew she had done it without showing even a hint of fear. "Admiral," the tactical officer said quietly, Their entire fleet has stopped advancing. They seem confused. Kim nodded. She had expected this reaction. The Empire was used to fear. They understood surrender, and they understood desperate resistance. They did not understand calm confidence from a species they considered primitive. Prepare the deep space communication array, Kim ordered. Send a message to all human colonies and outposts. Tell them that Operation Long Game has begun. The communications officer worked quickly at her station. Within minutes, the message was sent across human space. On 1,000 worlds, in 100 space stations, on countless ships and outposts, humans received the signal they had been waiting for. The signal that meant decades of careful preparation would finally be put to the test. Kim walked to her private office behind the command bridge. She activated her personal communication system and sent a coded message to contacts scattered across the galaxy. These were not human contacts. They were members of the species that the Empire had conquered. Species that the Empire considered broken and obedient. Species that did not know they had friends among the stars. The Zephyrian fleet remained motionless at the border. 50,000 warships waited for orders from commanders who did not know what to do next. For the first time in their history, the Empire had encountered something they had never faced before. Not resistance, not surrender, but a simple word that contained more power than they could imagine. Halt. In the darkness of space, the great game was about to begin. Fleet Commander Zarketh stared at the communication screen in complete silence. His 4 arms hung motionless at his sides. Around him, the command bridge of the Imperial flagship buzzed with confused activity. Officers whispered to each other in the ancient Zephyrian language. No one knew what to do. Commander, his second-in-command approached carefully. The humans have cut communication. Our fleet is holding position as you ordered. What are your instructions? Zarketh had conquered 43 species during his long career. He had seen civilizations beg for mercy. He had watched proud warriors fight hopeless battles. He had witnessed entire planets surrender without firing a single shot. But he had never encountered anything like this. The humans had told him to halt, not with weapons, not with threats, not with desperate bargaining. They had simply said halt, as if they had the right to give orders to the Zephyrian Empire. As if 50,000 Imperial warships were not enough to inspire proper respect. Sir, his second-in-command prompted again. Send a message to the human command station, Zarketh decided. We will meet with their representatives. I want to see what makes these primitives think they can negotiate with the Empire. Captain Park Min-woo received the meeting request while reviewing tactical reports in his quarters aboard the light cruiser Harmony's Dream. He was young for a captain, only 32 years old, but he had trained his entire life for missions like this. He understood that his job was not to fight the Empire. His job was to make them think. 2 hours later, Park and his small diplomatic team approached the Zephyrian flagship in a simple transport shuttle. The Imperial vessel was enormous. It stretched for miles through space, covered with weapon systems that could destroy entire moons. Smaller ships surrounded it like metallic fish swimming around a mechanical whale. Captain, his pilot said nervously. I'm reading weapons locks on our shuttle. They could vaporize us instantly. They won't, Park replied calmly. They're curious. Curiosity is good. It means they're thinking instead of just following orders. The shuttle docked with the flagship's main hangar. Park and his team stepped out into a space larger than most cities. Thousands of Zephyrian soldiers stood in perfect formation. Their weapons gleamed under bright lights. Their purple skin looked almost black in the artificial illumination. Park wore a simple human diplomatic uniform. His team carried no weapons. They brought only a small case containing gifts from Earth. As they walked across the hangar floor, their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Every Zephyrian eye watched them with expressions that mixed confusion with contempt. Fleet Commander Zarketh waited in his personal meeting chamber. The room was designed to intimidate visitors. Massive displays showed the locations of Imperial fleets throughout the galaxy. Trophy weapons from conquered civilizations hung on the walls. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared in shadows above. "Welcome aboard my flagship," Zarketh said as the humans entered. He remained seated on his command throne, looking down at them. "I am Fleet Commander Zarketh. I have conquered more worlds than your species has ever discovered. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Park replied politely. "I am Captain Park Min-woo of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We appreciate your hospitality." The humans' calm response surprised Zarketh. Most species showed fear when they first saw him. They trembled when they heard about his conquests. They begged when they realized their situation was hopeless. But this human acted like they were meeting for afternoon tea. "Before we begin formal discussions," Park continued, "my team has brought gifts from Earth. We hope you will accept them as tokens of friendship." Park's assistant opened the case and removed several items. There was a small plant in a clear container. There were photographs of Earth's landscapes. There was a music recording device. There was a book of human poetry translated into the Galactic Common Language. Zarketh looked at the gifts with confusion. Conquered species usually offered valuable resources. They provided rare metals or advanced technologies. They gave anything that might buy them better treatment. But these humans were offering flowers and songs. "We also brought tea," Park said, producing a thermal container and several cups. "Would you like to try some? It's a traditional Earth beverage. We find it helps people think more clearly during important conversations." The fleet commander's forearms moved in a gesture that showed complete bewilderment. In 800 years of imperial history, no one had ever offered tea to a conquering fleet commander. No one had ever treated a Zephyrian invasion as an opportunity for cultural exchange. "You realize," Zarketh said slowly, "that I have 50,000 warships surrounding your pathetic little border systems? You realize that I could destroy every human world before your evening meal?" "Of course." Park nodded. "We're not questioning your military capability. The Zephyrian Empire has an impressive service record. We've studied your campaigns against the Korathi Federation and the Velthan Republic. Very professional work." Zarketh found himself accepting a cup of tea without understanding why. The warm liquid tasted strange but pleasant. The human captain sat across from him as if they were old friends meeting for a casual visit. Other members of the human team stood quietly, showing no signs of fear or desperation. "Captain Park," Zarketh said, using the human's name without thinking about it. "Your species has impressed me with its unusual approach to diplomacy. But you must understand that the Empire does not negotiate with species it intends to conquer. We offer only one choice: surrender or destruction." Park sipped his tea thoughtfully. "With respect, Fleet Commander, I think you might want to consider additional options. The situation here is more complicated than your intelligence reports indicate." "What do you mean?" "We know about the Korathi mining operations in the Vega sector. We know about the Velthan agricultural colonies in the Centauri region. We know about the Nexian technology centers throughout your core worlds. We know about all of them." The cup slipped from one of Zarketh's hands and clattered on the floor. Tea spread across the polished metal surface like a small brown stain on the Empire's perfect order. "How do you know about classified Imperial operations?" Park smiled gently. "Fleet Commander, I think we need to have a much longer conversation than either of us originally planned." Dr. Lee Ha-Newell entered the meeting chamber carrying a datapad and a gentle smile. She was the chief xenobiologist for the Terran Diplomatic Corps, but she looked more like a university professor than a military officer. Her gray hair was tied back in a simple style. Her clothes were practical and comfortable. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades studying the galaxy's most complex problems. "Fleet Commander Zarketh," Captain Park said, "I would like you to meet Dr. Lee Ha-Newell. She has been looking forward to this conversation." Zarketh studied the older human woman with growing unease. Something about her calm manner reminded him of his own intelligence officers when they reported particularly sensitive information. She sat down without waiting for permission and activated her datapad. "Commander," Dr. Lee said pleasantly, "I hope you don't mind if I share some of our research with you. We've been studying the Zephyrian Empire for quite some time. Your civilization is fascinating from a sociological perspective." The screen on her datapad projected a holographic display into the air above the table. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed with different colors. Red dots marked Zephyrian military bases. Blue dots showed major industrial centers. Green dots indicated agricultural worlds. "This is impressive human technology," Zarketh admitted grudgingly. "But I fail to see why you think this information will change anything." "Oh, this is just the basic structure," Dr. Lee smiled. "Let me show you the interesting parts." She touched the datapad, and the display changed. New dots appeared throughout the Empire. Thousands of them. They were colored yellow, and they appeared on almost every world that the Empire controlled. "What are those?" Zarketh demanded. "Those are human aid stations, Doctor," Lee explained calmly. "We've been operating them for about 40 years now. Each one serves a different purpose, but they all have the same goal: helping people who need help." Zarketh's forearms began to shake. "That's impossible. No alien species operates inside Empire territory without our knowledge. Our security systems would detect any unauthorized presence immediately." "Well, that's the interesting thing about security systems," Dr. Lee said. "They're designed to detect threats. But we're not threats. We're doctors and teachers and social workers. We fix broken bones and teach children to read. We help elderly people stay healthy, and young people learn job skills. Security systems don't usually look for those activities." The holographic display zoomed in on a single star system. It showed a mining world where thousands of Korathi workers extracted rare metals for the Empire. Yellow dots appeared near every major mining facility. "Take the Korathi mining operations in this system, Doctor," Lee continued. "The workers suffer from respiratory diseases caused by exposure to metal dust. The Empire considers this an acceptable cost of production. We consider it a medical problem that can be solved." She touched the datapad again. The display showed detailed medical records, infection rates, treatment statistics, recovery data. "Our medical teams have been treating Korathi miners for 23 years. We've reduced respiratory disease by 74%. We've also taught them safer mining techniques that actually increase productivity. Everyone benefits." Zarketh stood up abruptly, his chair falling backwards with a crash. "You're lying. This is impossible. No species has ever operated covert operations throughout the Empire without detection." "Commander," Captain Park said gently, "please sit down. Dr. Lee has much more to show you." The display changed again. This time it focused on Velthan agricultural worlds. The yellow dots were everywhere. In farming communities, near food processing centers, around transportation hubs. "The Velthan people are excellent farmers," Dr. Lee explained. "But the Empire forces them to grow only crops that can be exported to industrial worlds. This creates malnutrition problems in their own communities. We've been helping them establish small gardens that provide balanced nutrition for their families." More data appeared. Child health statistics, educational achievement records, community development reports. "We've also been teaching their children," Dr. Lee continued, "not just imperial work skills, but their own traditional knowledge. Velthan culture includes sophisticated understanding of soil management and crop rotation. We help them preserve this knowledge while adapting it to modern farming techniques." The fleet commander's face had turned a darker shade of purple. His forearms moved in agitated patterns. Around the meeting chamber, his officers whispered to each other in concerned tones. "Show me the Nexian worlds," Zarketh said quietly. The display shifted to show the Empire's technology centers. These were worlds where the highly intelligent Nexian species designed and built the Empire's most advanced equipment. The yellow dots covered these worlds like stars in the night sky. The Nexians present interesting challenges, Dr. Lee admitted. They're not suffering from physical hardships like the Korathi or Velthan, but they're experiencing severe psychological stress from forced creativity. The Empire demands constant innovation, but provides no time for the contemplation and discussion that Nexian minds require. New data filled the display: mental health assessments, creativity measurements, innovation productivity charts. We've established quiet spaces where Nexian engineers can think and talk without imperial oversight. We've introduced meditation techniques from Earth. We've created informal discussion groups where they can explore ideas without pressure to produce immediate results. The result, Captain Park added, is that Nexian innovation has actually increased by 40% over the past decade. The Empire has been benefiting from human psychological support without even knowing it. Zarketh sat down heavily in his chair. He looked at the holographic display showing thousands of yellow dots scattered throughout his empire. Each dot represented humans working secretly among the species he thought he controlled completely. "How many species?" he asked quietly. "All of them," Dr. Lee replied. "Every single species in the Zephyrian Empire has been receiving human assistance for at least 15 years. Some for much longer." The meeting chamber fell completely silent. Even the whispered conversations among the Zephyrian officers stopped. The only sound was the gentle hum of the ship's life support systems. "But why?" Zarketh finally asked. "What do you gain from this?" Dr. Lee smiled the same gentle smile she had worn since entering the room. "Commander, we gain friends. We gain knowledge. We gain the satisfaction of helping people who need help. But most importantly, we gain something that I don't think the Empire has ever really understood, which is, we gain trust." Commander Zhang Yejin had been waiting quietly in the corner of the meeting chamber. She wore the uniform of Terran intelligence, but her manner was calm and professional rather than threatening. When Dr. Lee finished her presentation, Zhang stepped forward with her own data pad. "Fleet Commander," Zhang said politely, "I think you're beginning to understand the situation, but there are additional factors you should consider." Zarketh looked exhausted. His 4 arms hung at his sides like broken branches. The revelations about human aid operations had shaken his understanding of everything he thought he knew about the Empire. "What else could there possibly be?" he asked. Zhang activated her datapad. The holographic display changed to show communication networks spreading across the galaxy. Lines of light connected star systems throughout the Empire. The pattern looked like a vast spiderweb made of energy. "These are communication networks," Zhang explained. "For the past 30 years, we've been helping separated families stay in contact. When the Empire relocates workers from their home worlds, they often lose touch with relatives. We provide secure communication channels." She touched the datapad, and the display zoomed in on specific examples. A Korathi grandmother reading bedtime stories to grandchildren she hadn't seen in years. A young Velthan farmer receiving gardening advice from his father on a distant world. A Nexian engineer collaborating on personal projects with friends scattered across the galaxy. "Families are important," Zhang continued. "When people can stay connected to the people they love, they're happier and more productive. They're also more likely to preserve their cultural traditions." "Cultural traditions," Zarketh repeated slowly. "The Empire discourages cultural traditions. They interfere with worker efficiency." "Yes, we notice that policy. We disagree with it." The display changed again. This time it showed educational networks. Underground schools on hundreds of worlds. Teachers sharing lessons across star systems. Students learning subjects that the Empire had banned. "We've been operating educational programs throughout your territory," Zhang said. "Korathi children learn their traditional songs and dances. Velthan youth study their ancestral farming methods. Nexian students explore pure mathematics and theoretical physics without immediate practical applications. More data appeared. Literacy rates in native languages, cultural knowledge, preservation, statistics, traditional art and music production numbers. But education is dangerous, Zhang continued with a slight smile. When people learn about their own history and culture, they start to remember who they are. When they remember who they are, they start to make their own decisions. Fleet Commander Zarketh felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. He was beginning to understand where this conversation was leading, and he didn't like the destination. "Commander," Captain Park said gently, "we need to show you something else. Something that's happening right now, while we're talking." The holographic display expanded to show the entire Empire. Hundreds of star systems glowed in the darkness. But now, something new was appearing. Small flashing lights began to appear on world after world. At first there were only a few, then dozens, then hundreds. "What are those lights?" Zarketh demanded. "Those are strikes," Zhang replied calmly. "Work stoppages, peaceful demonstrations, civil disobedience. They started about an hour ago, when your fleet reached the human border. The lights continued to multiply. They appeared on mining worlds and agricultural planets. They flashed on manufacturing centers and transportation hubs. Within minutes, thousands of lights blinked across the Empire's territory. "This is impossible," Zarketh whispered. "Our security forces would suppress any resistance immediately. Your security forces are trained to deal with violent rebellion," Zhang explained. "But this isn't violent rebellion. This is organized non-cooperation. The workers are simply not working." The display zoomed in on specific examples. Korathi miners sitting peacefully outside their facilities, singing traditional songs. Velthan farmers tending their own family gardens instead of imperial crop fields. Nexian engineers meditation in public spaces, refusing to enter their laboratories. "They're not fighting your soldiers," Captain Park observed. "They're not destroying equipment. They're not making demands or issuing ultimatums. They're just stopping." "But why now?" Zarketh asked desperately. "Why today?" "Because," Zhang replied. She touched her datapad one final time. The display showed communication records from the past hour. Messages flowing between star systems throughout the Empire. Not military communications or government orders, but personal messages between ordinary people. "Your subjects know about this conversation," Zhang explained. "They know that humanity has refused to surrender to the Empire. They know that someone finally said no to the Zephyrian military machine, and they know that they're not alone anymore." The messages continued streaming across the display, hope and encouragement flowing from world to world, courage spreading like light through darkness. "For generations, your people believed that resistance was impossible," Captain Park said. "They thought the Empire was too powerful, too vast, too permanent to challenge. But humans have a saying: darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. We've been planting lights throughout your empire for 40 years, Doctor," Lee added. "Medical care, education, communication, cultural preservation, hope, and now, those lights are beginning to shine." Zarketh stared at the holographic display. Thousands of flashing points of light continued to appear across his empire. Each light represented a community, choosing hope over fear, cooperation over obedience, dignity over submission. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. Commander Zhang sat down across from him. Her expression was serious but not unkind. "Fleet Commander, we want you to consider a question that the Empire has never asked before, which is, what if there was a better way?" In the space around the flagship, 50,000 Zephyrian warships continued their silent watch. But throughout the Empire they had come to conquer. Something new was spreading across the stars. Something that weapons could not destroy, and force could not control. The idea that things could change. Colonel Choi Jin-ho arrived at the Zephyrian flagship 12 hours later. He came aboard a larger transport, accompanied by a diverse team of human specialists and several non-human observers. The observers were representatives of species throughout the galaxy, including some that the Empire had never encountered before. Fleet Commander Zarketh had not slept during those 12 hours. He had spent the time receiving reports from throughout the Empire. The strikes were spreading. Work had stopped on 400 worlds, but there was no violence, no destruction, no chaos. Colonel Choi. Captain Park made introductions as the new arrivals entered the meeting chamber. Fleet Commander Zarketh has been very patient with our explanations. I believe he's ready to hear your proposal. Choi was older than the other humans, with silver hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. He moved with the steady confidence of someone who had helped solve problems across the galaxy. Fleet Commander, Choi said, bowing slightly in the Zephyrian style. I apologize for any inconvenience our conversation may have caused. Change is never comfortable, even when it's necessary. Colonel, Zarketh replied. I have been thinking about what your people have shown me. The Empire has maintained order for 800 years. We have brought stability to hundreds of species. We have prevented wars and provided security throughout this region of space. Yes, you have, Choi agreed. The Zephyrian Empire has accomplished remarkable things. Your administrative systems are efficient. Your technology is advanced. Your military maintains peace across vast distances. These are genuine achievements. Zarketh seemed surprised by the humans' acknowledgement of Imperial successes. He had expected criticism or demands. However, Choi continued, we believe the Empire could accomplish even greater things with some modifications to its current approach. The holographic display activated to show a new image. Instead of the galaxy divided into conquered territories, it showed a network of voluntary partnerships. Lines connected star systems, but the lines represented trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts, and scientific collaborations. This is what we call the cooperative model, Choi explained. Instead of ruling through conquest, civilizations work together through voluntary association. Each species contributes what it does best. Everyone benefits from the partnership. Impossible, Zarketh said immediately. Different species have different goals. Without central authority, there would be constant conflict. That's what we thought too. Initially. Dr. Lee interjected. But our research shows something interesting. Species actually cooperate very well when they feel respected and valued. The problems come when they feel threatened or diminished. The display showed examples of successful interspecies cooperation. Human agricultural colonies working with Velthan farming experts. Nexian engineers collaborating with human computer scientists. Korathi miners partnering with human safety specialists to improve working conditions. The key, Captain Park added, is making sure everyone has a voice in decisions that affect them. When people help make the rules, they're more likely to follow them willingly. Emperor Vex Thor materialized in the meeting chamber as a holographic projection. The supreme ruler of the Zephyrian Empire looked ancient and tired. His forearms moved slowly as he surveyed the assembled humans and their alien observers. Fleet Commander Zarketh, the Emperor said, I have been monitoring your conversations. I have also been receiving reports about the work stoppages throughout our territory. Explain to me why we should consider abandoning systems that have served the Empire for centuries. Colonel Choi stood and addressed the Emperor directly. Your Majesty, we're not asking you to abandon your systems, we're asking you to expand them. The Empire has demonstrated exceptional skill at organization and administration. These skills would be invaluable in a cooperative confederation. But without the threat of force, the Emperor pointed out. Why would anyone follow Zephyrian leadership? Because, Choi replied, you would earn their respect, instead of demanding their obedience. The holographic display changed to show economic data, production statistics from worlds where human aid programs had been operating, innovation rates from facilities where workers felt valued and supported, efficiency measurements from communities where people chose their own participation. Your Majesty, Dr. Lee said, we've been conducting an inadvertent experiment throughout your empire for 4 decades. We've been treating your subjects as partners instead of property. The results show that voluntary cooperation produces better outcomes than forced compliance. In every measurable category, Zhang added, worlds with human support programs outperform worlds without them. Higher productivity, greater innovation, better health, increased stability, lower crime. The data is conclusive. Emperor Vex Thor studied the information in silence. Around him, the holographic meeting chamber filled with soft discussions, as human specialists answered questions from Zephyrian officers. What would this transition look like? The Emperor asked finally. Colonel Choi activated a new display. It showed a timeline stretching across several years. Gradual changes, careful steps, voluntary participation by different species as they chose to join the new arrangement. We propose a pilot program, Choi explained. Select a small number of star systems to try the cooperative model. If it works, expand it. If it doesn't, return to the previous system. And what role would humanity play in this confederation? Whatever role you invite us to play, Captain Park replied. We have experience with diplomatic mediation. We understand cultural diversity. We've developed techniques for conflict resolution. But we would be partners, not rulers. The Empire would retain its leadership position, Choi assured the Emperor. Your administrative expertise and organizational capabilities would be essential for managing a voluntary confederation. The change would be in how that leadership is exercised. Emperor Vex Thor looked at Fleet Commander Zarketh. Commander, what is your assessment? Zarketh considered the question carefully. Your Majesty, I believe we have reached a point where change is inevitable. The question is whether we choose the direction of that change or allow others to choose for us. The Emperor nodded slowly. Colonel Choi, I accept your proposal for a pilot program, but I have one condition. Yes, Your Majesty, Earth will serve as the neutral mediator for all disputes during the transition. If the humans expect us to trust their cooperative model, they must accept responsibility for making it work. Colonel Choi smiled. Your Majesty, we would be honored to help. 6 months later, Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood before the same viewing screen at Terran Command Station Harmony. But now, the stars looked different. Trade ships moved between systems that had once been separated by fear. Communication networks carried messages of friendship instead of military orders. Scientists shared discoveries instead of hoarding secrets. The Galactic Cooperation Accord had been signed by representatives of 67 species. The document established Earth as the neutral mediating authority for interspecies disputes. It created frameworks for voluntary association. It guaranteed cultural rights and individual freedoms throughout the Confederation. The Empire had not disappeared. It had transformed, from a system based on conquest to one based on consent, from rule through fear to leadership through service, from taking what they wanted to earning what they received. And at the border between human space and what was now called the Cooperative Confederation, there were no weapons. Only welcome stations where travelers from different worlds could meet, trade, learn, and build the future together. The galaxy had learned something new. Sometimes, the most powerful word is not surrender or destroy. Sometimes the most powerful word is halt. And sometimes, when someone finally has the courage to say that word, everything changes.